welcome to Wood with Handles, a baseball podcast for fans by fans. This is episode 15 for the week of July 22nd. I'm Ryan.
I'm Josh.
And I'm Johnny.
Before we get started, guys, as usual, head over to iTunes or YouTube. Add us on whatever you need to there. Like us, comment on us. It helps us get to the top of everything. Also, sorry for being late this week. Obviously, we normally release on Monday, and we're a little day behind on this, but I think it's going to pay off because a lot of news came out today on Monday. Just getting started. Ryan Braun has been suspended for the rest of the season. It was announced today that basically he was caught red-handed. They haven't really said what happened for sure, but basically he agreed to it, so he's not denying that he was caught, and he will be done for the rest of the season. How do you guys feel about this?
I think we all knew it was coming. I guess I'm okay with the suspension. I kind of wish it was more, to be honest with you. But I'm okay with the suspension. But the one thing is now he's fessing up to basically taking steroids and admitting to using, when after all these years his whole stance was, I'm not doing it, I'm clean, everybody believed me. He lied to get out of that test. So I guess just on principle, I'm glad that he got suspended for lying for all this time.
I think it's pretty interesting that in his statement he says he now realizes that he made a mistake, as opposed to not realizing when he took steroids or whatever PEDs he was taking that he made a mistake. I thought it was a real cop-out of a statement. But it's also not surprising. These people are just trained to lie at a certain point. Maybe they're a little bit delusional of what they think they've done, what they haven't done, who they've hurt in the process. But it's a really sad day for Ryan Braun fans, Brewers fans, anyone involved with the situation. And it just looks like we're scratching the surface at this point. So we're going to see all that happens. The only bright side for Brewers fans is that they were in last place anyway. So Ryan Braun missing the end of the season, it looks like probably being back for opening day next year is probably not that big of a deal for them at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice that they don't have to pay him while he's gone. I mean, all that's nice. I agree with Ryan. I would like a little bit more stiffer penalty, but I'm happy with this. I think A-Rod's going to end up getting the brunt of all of this heat. I think A-Rod's going to be banned for more than just the rest of this season. I think you might see him banned from the game or banned into a significant portion of next season at the very least. But I'm to an extent satisfied. I understand why he got a lesser penalty because he kind of cooperated. He admitted. I think this definitely hurts the rest of the other 19 players who are on this said list, though, because now that he says, yeah, it's true, and I admit to it, that means everything Tony Bosch said is true.
Yeah, I think A-Rod, to kind of regress, I think A-Rod's going to get the brunt of the suspension. I think there's a good chance that maybe he's going to get suspended for possibly forever, banned from the game, if that's what you want to call it. But I definitely think he's going to get the stiffest suspension. But the rest of the week's going to be interesting. I guess I didn't expect the shoe to drop this quick, or the hammer to drop this quick on Braun. Something obviously happened. Nobody really knows what it is. But for him to be the only guy suspended right now, something had to have come out, or basically he just couldn't handle it anymore and came out and said, "Hey, I did this," and they had no other course of action. But the rest of the week's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Hammer would drop. You didn't think the hammer would drop this quickly, or you didn't think the Hebrew hammer would be dropped this quickly?
Yeah, I guess I thought I kind of foresaw it coming this quick, but I didn't think that he would be the only one gone. I thought they would probably announce them all together. Well, I didn't see him being the only one to go at this point in time.
I just had to make the pun joke, sorry, but as a Dodger fan, this just brings me back to 2011 when Ryan Braun won the MVP over Matt Kemp, which I thought was kind of bullshit at the time just because Matt Kemp had much better statistics. But since the Brewers were in the playoffs, there was a stronger argument. Writers were leaning on that fact for Braun to be the MVP over Kemp, which I fundamentally disagree with. And I know we're getting off topic, but Matt Kemp, give him the 2011 MVP award. Someone mail it to him.
Yeah, he could use it right now, huh?
I was going to say, I mean, do we put an asterisk next to this, like Barry Bonds' home run title? I mean, I just, it's silly to me. I'm glad that he's gone. I've said multiple times since we've done this show, and anybody who knows me as a fan of baseball knows I really don't give a shit about steroids, but he lied. He bold-faced lied. He got away on a technicality, and now he got caught. And like Johnny, like you said, his statement was like, well, I now realize what I did, blah, 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 blah. But no, you've been doing wrong for so long now, and just somehow skated by, and he's the first person to get his PED suspension overturned. And now, I mean, you've been caught now. It's over.
It's complete bullshit. He didn't realize what he did wrong. He realized he got caught.
Yeah.
And there's no way of getting around it.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I mean, I guess before I give my opinion, well, do you guys believe A-Rod's next, or is this going to be, will we get mass suspensions from this point? Like, what happens now?
Granted that I think what happened with A-Rod being sent back down to Single A to his next rehab stint, when he said that he was feeling fine, everything was good to go, he was scheduled to make his return, the Yankees just suddenly sent him back down. I think the Yankees must know something and are waiting for something, and I just don't think they'd send him back down on a technicality, although I've heard rumors that they're trying to keep him back down for insurance purposes so they don't have to pay him all this money, so that, basically for the team. But I think A-Rod's going to be the next one to fall, and it's going to be a long, hard fall for him.
That's a really good point about the Yankees sending him down, might knowing something. And the thing about A-Rod is he's already at the tail end of his career. I mean, he's been not awful, but he's been not so good the last couple of years, and he's had a lot of time off with this latest injury. And if he gets a 100-game suspension or something in that ballpark, that might just be we might just be calling it a career for him at this point. And I absolutely think that we're just at the beginning now. A lot more people are going to be suspended. Whether Alex Rodriguez is actually the next person, I don't know. But if the point of this whole investigation and suspensions is to deter people from doing it in the future, you just got to wipe it out clean and get as many people as you can as possible. Because if you're a baseball player and you're only seeing one person on top taking the fall for everyone else, it's not really incentive to stop doing it. So I definitely think this is going to be the first of many, and probably we're looking at least we're definitely looking at double digits, I'd say.
Yeah, when all this news came out a couple months ago, Buster Olney was talking about it, and basically what he was saying is right now even the 100-game suspension isn't enough to deter anybody, because the amount of money that you lose over 100 games is worth it to take the steroids for the amount of games you'll win, MVPs, contract extensions, in theory, that you would get if you were taking steroids. So at this point, it's almost worth it just to take the suspension, because the suspension's not strict enough. Really, I mean, almost for any player, with the exception of a minor league player who's not covered by the players union, because they could just get fucked for good. It's almost worth it to just take the hit and do the steroids and eventually get a bigger contract because you're talented, and at least get those 2 strikes before they quote unquote ban you from the game, which hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, and it's going to be something to see how each player gets what each player gets as the amount of games they're going to get, because I heard what's the guy's name of the head of the Players Association? I think it's like Matt Weiner. Yeah. Basically, he said that because
what was his last name?
Wiener. Basically, because there's basically, this is not an open shut case where it's like, okay, this person has a positive test. This is basically all analytical, where Bud Selig doesn't have. He can basically hand out any suspension that he wants to anybody just based on the fact that there's no
nobody failed a drug test.
Nobody failed a drug test. There is nothing to go by. So essentially, he can suspend anybody for as long as he wants or as little as he wants. So it's going to be interesting to see who gets suspended and for how long.
But Ryan Braun saying, because he admitted to it, he accepted it. He didn't appeal anything. He said, yeah, basically whatever evidence they brought him, and they're not saying what it is at this point, but whatever evidence they brought to Ryan Braun, he basically was like, "Fuck, you got me. You caught me." And so he's admitting it to it. So this whole thing of like, is Tony Bosch's information credible? It's totally credible. Ryan Braun just fucked all 19 other players by doing this. It's going to be interesting where it goes. I hope the other guys outside of Braun and A-Rod get a smaller, easier, suspension. I'm hoping for the 50 games or end of the season kind of thing. They're initially saying 50 for a lot of these guys, and with Ryan Braun was supposed to get 100, but then he negotiated because he admitted. So I'm hoping these guys will get 50. They get a smaller one, because you know what? I don't mind steroids in the sport, but I do mind liars, and I'm hoping that they can get something going with it. But I do hope A-Rod gets banned from the sport. Pete Rose is banned from the sport, and he can't have anything to do with this sport anymore. But all of a sudden, it's just okay for everyone else to get away with this. Moving on, Tim Lincecum had a no-hitter, I believe, right before the All-Star game here. He really kind of turned into his old self there. It was kind of nice to see him. We've talked a lot of shit about Tim Lincecum in recent weeks, and he kind of really stepped it up for that game.
Yeah, well, this is typical Tim Lincecum for me. It's been so hot and cold and streaky off and on and good and bad for so long now. It's a good story to see. It's the second no-hitter in as many weeks. So yeah, I'm happy for Tim Lincecum, but I'd like to see more consistency like this out of him and see if he can regain the dominant pitching status that he once had.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy. More than most people getting a no-hitter, I was very happy to see Tim Lincecum get a no-hitter, and that's, saying something considering I'm a Dodger fan. Just someone that fell from the grace of being a multiple-time Cy Young winner to falling into this inconsistent pitcher, basically borderline like a number 5 pitcher at this point, and he's really not that good anymore. To see that guy just have like another moment in the sun, so to speak, and just have like a night where it was all about him, and he just really redeemed himself, created another memory, part of his legacy, a night he'll never forget. It was just a great sight to see, including the Buster Posey embrace. There were some great defensive plays in that game that really saved it. It was really not that great of a no-hitter when he issued, I forget how many walks. It's been over a week now. It's like he had like 3 or 4 walks. Mm-hmm. He had a lot of strikeouts, but there was that crazy Pence play. Pablo Sandoval started turning into the best defensive third baseman in the league. It was really something to see, and it was nice to see all his teammates behind him. It was a group effort to get that no-hitter.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nice to see. I feel happy for the guy. Is he going to do it again? No. I mean, I think Tim Lincecum is kind of. I think the time of the multiple Cy Young is kind of over, and it is what it is. So, but it was nice to see it. I liked him. I think nobody can really have a problem with him. He's a goofy kid. I mean, he just has fun. You can see in everything that he does that he legitimately just has fun playing the game. So it was really, really nice to see that. The other big news of this past week, obviously we don't have a ton, but the All-Star game happened Monday. Monday was Home Run Derby. All-Star game was Tuesday. Yoenis Cespedes was the winner of the Home Run Derby. A, none of the 3 of us picked Cespedes to win this Home Run Derby. And B, I never thought, he was a last thought. He was to fill the spot for Cabrera because Cabrera didn't want to do it because of his back. Like, who would have thought? And he just killed it.
Yeah, Cespedes was in beast mode pretty much all night. I had Prince Fielder, so I was way off. Not even close. But, it was fun to watch. He was hitting balls, and he just wasn't hitting balls home runs. He was hitting really deep, long, far home runs. And, it was nothing more than – I did watch the whole thing, Johnny, so thank you. But it was a lot of fun to watch, and I actually enjoyed it because watching Cespedes and then Bryce Harper, who is one of my favorite players, in the final two, it was a lot of fun, but it was really cool to see Cespedes bomb all these home runs and then hit that truck to win it for one of those fans too.
Do you guys remember who I picked on the show to win it?
Yeah, you did.
The Rockets dudes,
you had
right?
Cano, Robinson Cano.
Oh yeah, I did. Okay, I did.
I think I'm one of the Rockets guys.
I didn't really want to pick anyone because I didn't, and this might be a cop out, but I definitely talked with my friends before the Home Run Derby, and I definitely picked Cespedes. And my reasoning was at that point just because, he's from Cuba. We go to the movies on a Friday night. I'm pretty sure they just have home run derbies on Friday night. I think when he was talking about after it, he was like in his 5th home run derby. The guy has pretty legit power. I'm not going to claim I'm like some Nostradamus or anything, but I definitely could see that happening. And he definitely didn't. I don't think he came out of nowhere. He's definitely a huge power hitter, and this is just the kind of competition for him. He's a little bit showboaty. It's a real exhibition for him. I just feel like Cespedes is basically made for this tournament the same way we would say Prince Fielder is.
Yeah, he kind of had the bat flip to end all bat flips, didn't he?
It was the bat flip to end all bat flips. It was epic in every sense of the way.
Yeah, I was happy for him. I guess I introed that little topic by sounding kind of negative. I don't think it's bad that he won. I didn't see it at all. And I guess my pick was also Prince Fielder. Ryan and I both picked him, and I couldn't. From the get-go, almost first, second swing, it just didn't feel like Prince had it. And it was, I was really shocked. I didn't see Bryce Harper going that far. I seen him definitely coming out of the first round, but I didn't see him going that far. There was a lot of shocker in that whole thing for me. I would have liked Chris Davis to go further, but it just kind of makes sense that Chris Davis wouldn't go that far and shit. I believe, I know we're only 3 days in, but I believe hasn't hit a home run to this point.
Yeah, I was going to say, 3 games in here, and he hasn't hit a home run, so we'll see what happens with that. No, but he'll get back on track.
Yeah, I'm sure he will. But yeah, I mean, it was a fun home run derby. I watched the whole thing as well. I mean, I normally do, but it was a good time. They made it fun. I feel like, I mean, as usual, it kind of drags a little, but I don't feel like it dragged like a ridiculous amount to the point where like it was unbearable.
I just wish next year we could get less Chris Berman.
Back.
You're gonna miss it when he's gone, and he's not there anymore to do it. You're gonna miss him. I'm telling you right now.
The only way I'm gonna miss him. The only way that I'm gonna miss him is if they fill it with Joe Buck. That's the only way it could get worse.
You will miss him. Mark my words.
Back. The next night we had the All-Star game, which overall, if you had to summarize the All-Star game, was boring. Not really much happened. For me, the 2 big moments were Trout's leadoff double and Fielder's triple. How'd you guys feel about the All-Star game?
No Mariano Rivera in there for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously.
No getting hit by Matt Harvey?
I don't give a shit about that. He deserved that. He doesn't really deserve it. I'm just a hater.
The game was a snooze fest all the way around until the Mariano Rivera thing. But the first few innings were a pretty cool pitching matchup to watch. I mean, Scherzer and Harvey were basically toe to toe the first inning.
What about Chris Sale? He got the win.
Yeah, Chris Sale, he pitched a really good 2 innings. But I mean, I guess you can win. Yeah, whatever. You can chalk it up to an all-star game. But watching Harvey and Scherzer duel against each other was really cool. The Prince Fielder thing was comical. It was something good to laugh at.
It was great.
Yeah, and then the moment that really stuck out for me and maybe everybody, which was the Mariano Rivera situation and the Standing O and everything that went with it, which we'll discuss in a little bit. But yeah, overall kind of really boring except for that 8th inning.
I got to agree with a lot of what Josh said, including that Chris Sale was, I mean, we can get into this in the Mariano Rivera segment, but Chris Sale had a better inning than Mariano Rivera. So technically, Chris Sale should have been the MVP in my opinion.
I guess a lot of reporters felt that way too.
I mean, if we're going just based off of what they did in that game, then you can't argue that Chris Sale didn't have a better inning since he struck people out. But it was a pretty boring game for All-Star games. You like to think there would be a lot more scoring involved, but it went a pretty long time for being a low-scoring game. So at the same time, I wasn't that disappointed, and not really much to touch about except the points you made. The Prince Fielder triple was pretty hilarious. It was interesting at first when Harvey let 2 men on, including hitting Cano. I mean, there's nothing worse than having your star player getting hit in an All-Star game by your crosstown rival, I guess.
Girardi had to have been shitting himself.
Oh, dude, I bet he was so nervous just then.
Yeah, I mean, it was a boring game. But I enjoyed it at the same time. I mean, it kind of like trailed off, and then the peak was obviously Mariano Rivera. But
can we start talking about Mariano Rivera yet? Can we get into it?
Yeah, we'll go there. I mean, it was amazing. I am easily choked up. I am not exactly the most masculine man on the planet, and I stuff like that gets to me. But man, that was emotional.
Yeah, it was a really, really great moment to see. I mean, even if you're just a traditional, I mean, even if you're just a sports fan, not really a baseball fan, and you just had a little bit of knowledge of what was going on. I mean, Mariano Rivera walked out in the 8th inning. All the players stayed off the field. He walked on, got a basically 5-minute standing ovation from the crowd. Really, really great moment. It was the defining moment for this year's All-Star game for me.
Yeah, I think that goes without saying. I think anyone that watched the game, especially its entirety, I mean, it was kind of built up around it. We saw the Mariano, I don't know if you guys saw it, you probably did, when he was talking to the teammates in the locker room in the back, they showed that you're really getting amped up about it, and they kept reporting about how he was going to pitch, that Lennon was going to pitch him in the 8th inning just in case that the National League caught up and like won the game in the 9th and then he wouldn't have a chance to pitch. So they made a big deal about him coming out the entire game. It was a great moment. It's really sad to see him go. I mean, then a couple days later, the guy's just a huge rock star right now, getting a standing O at Fenway Park. The guy can do basically no wrong and pretty crazy. He's having such a good year. He's having a vintage Mariano Rivera year. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't want to see him retire. I like to see things burn out and kind of play its course. I don't think people should go out on top. I need some kind of closure, and I can't handle knowing that Mariano Rivera could have pitched until his 50s, and I could have witnessed this, but instead he's going to cop out, and he's going to spend time with his family, and he's going to do other stuff. That's just not as important as baseball. So I don't know. You guys maybe want to dive into it, but I don't think he should retire, and I think I want to see him pitching until the arm falls off, basically.
Yeah, I do. Did you guys see the interview that he did with Joe Buck just before the All-Star game? It was a quick little 10-minute thing. Basically what he said is he doesn't want to be the type of pitcher that walks away when he's declining. He wants to go out knowing that he can still play and that he can be the best at what he's doing. It's sad to see him go. I would like to see him go. I wouldn't like to see him go. I would like to see him come back. But after the farewell tour that he's gotten and everything that's gone along with him and kind of being the rock star that he is for baseball right now, I don't think there's any way that he can possibly return next year. But two things real quick. I mean, do you guys have any problem with what Leland did, pitching him in the eighth? I think it was the right call on my end.
I did initially, but then when listening to Leland's reasoning, because he did interviews afterwards, it made sense. I mean, you didn't want to see him come out and then end up blowing the game or really coming out just for no reason, not to really get the save. It didn't bother me afterwards. In the moment, I was like, it's kind of dumb. I mean, he's a closer. Why is he in the eighth inning? That just doesn't make any sense. But, I mean, in the end, it's the All-Star game. It didn't matter. They could have pitched him. I mean, there was rumors that they were going to start him. I mean, he could have been the starting pitcher. It wouldn't have mattered. It's just, it is what it is. He's Mariano Rivera. I'm loving all of this right now. While on one hand, I agree, I don't want to see him retire. On the other hand, it's nice to see. I mean, I hope we don't get this every year. We had Chipper Jones last year. I hope we don't get this every year where you get the old guy who's retiring. But Mariano Rivera, I say it all the time. I have three Yankees who I respect: Rivera, Ruth, and Jeter, and that's about the extent of my Yankees respect. And I mean, he's such a respectable guy because he's a nice guy. He's not a dickhead. He goes in and he does his work, and he's a caring, nice individual. Obviously, I don't personally know the man, but from what I've read and seen, just seems like a nice guy. And you know what? If he's ready to be done, he's ready to be done. I highly doubt he's done with baseball for good. I'm sure he's going to be involved with the Yankees organization or some organization in some way, shape, and or form. If he's ready to be done, he's ready to be done. That's kind of my view on it.
Yeah, I think you might get another farewell tour if things don't go well with Jeter this year. I think you may have one next year again, too, so we can wait on that. But the other really cool thing, I'm typically a hater of Fox Sports and everything Fox, but that camera angle they had from him running out in the dugout was freaking brilliant. I mean, it didn't get any better than that. Yeah,
I agree. It was all very nice. It's very nice. It was just, I've watched the video over and over since then. I mean, it's great to see. The Boston thing was just as great. I mean, to get that kind of ovation from your rival is, I mean, just unheard of in any sport. I mean, you talk
unprecedented.
Yeah, it's amazing. Way to go, Rivera. Like I said, on one hand, I don't want to see you go, but thanks for, I mean, my whole, at least acknowledging adult life, giving such a great baseball experience and memories. I mean,
I don't want to rain on the parade, but do you guys think this will ever get to the point where it gets cheesy, or it just gets to the point where people are going to get over it with all the celebration of everything in Mariano Rivera?
No. It didn't get over it with Chipper Jones, and Chipper Jones is kind of an asshole.
I guess we'll kind of see at the end of the season. I think there's always a possibility of that. I love it all, so if we be, that's calling it cheesy. But since he's already had two pretty big moments this year, I mean, we'll see what happens at the end of the season. But it's nice to see, and he is the greatest closer ever, so he deserves it.
Yeah, I agree.
I really liked the broken bat chair in Minnesota. That was fun. Moving on, probably our last bit of news. This afternoon it was announced that Matt Garza was traded from the Chicago Cubs to the Texas Rangers for, not sure what his first name is, but Olton and a couple other minor league prospects. How do you guys feel about this? Is this a win-win, or who comes out on top in this trade?
I don't know if it's a win-win. I think it's probably definitely a win for the Cubs. I think they probably got a couple really real good prospects out of it. Whether or not it makes the Rangers any better, we'll see. I think Garza's been kind of so-so this year. But anyway, I mean, they improved their staff. It's an improvement, even if it's just a little one. So I think the Cubs definitely got the better end of it, but we'll see.
I would have to vehemently disagree with that assessment just because Matt Garza's been on my fantasy team all year. I'm not happy about him having to pitch in Texas now, but he has had an absolutely fantastic year since he's come back from his injury. He's 6-1 with a 3.17 ERA and a 1.14 WHIP. The Rangers' weakness is definitely their starting pitching at this point. I mean, obviously they have Yu Darvish, but outside of that, everything's been sketched this year, and they're first place in the AL West, and they're here to stay. So getting a really high quality starting pitcher who could easily fall into the number 2 spot for this team by how good he's been in some years is a huge win for them. Getting rid of Mike Olt, who's someone that was pretty much blocked at their position anyway. He's a corner infielder, and right now Beltre's basically he's still very much in the prime of his career. Mike Olt's probably not much better than Mitch Moreland, and they have other prospects. They're a really farm-rich system right now, so they really didn't even lose that much. I don't think these players that they gave up are anything that special. I could be wrong, but anytime you have a chance to roll the dice and get someone that could really help you out this year and for years to come, I'm for it. And Matt Garza's pitching for a contract right now, so Matt Garza has every ounce of incentive to have the best second half of his entire career. So I love the trade for the Rangers.
Yeah, I think this is a win-win. I call it a win for the Rangers because you're right. I mean, he can fall into the number 2 spot. They already had decent pitching, or I wouldn't even say decent, really good pitching, but this kind of just makes them even better. I mean, it doesn't hurt them in the immediate future. Like you said, they're not going to need these prospects. But I also call it a win for the Cubs because Theo Epstein isn't going to trade for some minor league prospects that don't have some kind of talent. If Theo sees something in these kids, I mean, this is the real deal then.
If they're not going to re-sign Matt Garza and to the big contract that he probably would command, and they might think he's overvalued, then at this point it might make sense just to roll the dice on people, even if you don't like him that much. And that's what I think Theo Epstein's doing, because Garza's probably going to command at least $70 or $80 million. Upwards, I would predict, in the offseason. And the Cubs are still rebuilding, so I don't know if they want to blow their load on Matt Garza, so they just got what they could get.
Yeah, I like it for both teams. I think today it benefits the Rangers way more.
Oh, for sure.
Future, I think this is really going to work well for the Cubs. I mean, I'm a big Theo Epstein fan. Anybody who knows me knows this. I really like Theo. I think he's probably, in my opinion, the smartest man in all of baseball. So I think if I was like the Rangers organization, for example, and Theo Epstein wants these minor league guys, I would have to sit back for a second and be like, there's something that he sees in these guys that adds a little bit more value than what they would normally have. And so I think in the future, these guys are going to end up being a big deal for the Cubs, or at least being trade pieces for the Cubs at some point in time. And I think it works for everybody as a whole. I don't think anybody's really going to lose out in this situation.
I'm curious, Johnny. You just said that you don't like him pitching in Arlington too much. I think the last few years we've seen it. Pitchers making divisional changes have really had, or league changes have had a little bit of struggle coming back, or I mean, finding the balance between the two leagues. Do you think this is going to be okay for Garza, or is it going to be something he's going to struggle with for a little bit?
Well, in terms of, I mean, I was strictly speaking from a fantasy perspective because I'm really into fantasy baseball, and he's one of my best pitchers right now. So playing in the National League without a DH in Wrigley Field, which is a pretty neutral park. It's not that much of a hitter's park. It's slightly a hitter's park, but not much. Going to the American League, where you're now in one of the best hitting parks in the entire country and have to face a DH. I mean, his numbers are definitely not going to sustain at what they're at right now. But at the same time, I think he's probably the best pitcher the Rangers now have after Yu Darvish. So even if his numbers regress, he's still going to be very good for them, and he's still going to give them a better chance to win every 1 out of 5 games.
Yeah, like I said, I like it. I have no complaints with where this goes from here. Just good for every team involved. Good for Texas. Hopefully they can turn this into a division championship. Obviously, I think the Angels are gonna at least make a comeback, make it hard for these people. I'm a biased Angels fan though, but yeah, hopefully this will kind of solid up their division win, and we can go on from there.
Well, that's it for the show this week. Just a reminder, you can find us on both Twitter and Facebook by searching Wood with Handles.
Once again, just everyone keep liking us and rating us and leave us feedback on iTunes. It's been working. We've definitely had more listens in the past few weeks than we normally do. So something as simple as pressing a thumbs up on YouTube or giving a star rating, even without a comment on iTunes, it takes one click and it really helps us more than you guys even understand.
Please like us.
As always, I'm Ryan.
I'm Josh.
I'm always Johnny.
And thanks for listening, guys.